CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories: solidarity and support, the message from European Union foreign ministers in Ukraine for an historic meeting. These are the live pictures as former US President Donald Trump appears in court in New York for a civil fraud case that raises questions about the future of his business empire. Spain's top women's football players testify in the investigation into former Federation chief Luis Rubiales' World Cup kiss. And the rider who grabbed China's first gold medal in eventing at the Asian Games in Hangzhou. The foreign ministers of all 27 European Union member states are in Ukraine for what's being described as an historic meeting to pledge ongoing support for Kyiv. It's their first ever gathering outside EU borders, and Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell says it's to show solidarity to the Ukrainian people. This follows the victory of Robert Fico's smear party in Slovakia's election on Sunday. He campaigned on a pro-Russian platform, pledging to end military support to Ukraine. Germany's foreign minister reiterated EU solidarity for Kyiv and said its future was in the EU.
With this Foreign Council of EU foreign ministers, we're taking the European Union to where the heart of Europe beats strongest at the moment, here in Kyiv, here in Ukraine. Ukraine's future lies in the European Union, in our community of freedom, and it'll soon stretch from Lisbon to Luhansk. With every village, with every metre that Ukraine liberates, with every metre where it saves its people, it also paves the way into the European Union. And we, as European partners and friends, will continue to support Ukraine in this every day.
Well, let's talk to our correspondent Megumi Lim in Kyiv. Megumi, as well as clearly a show of support, some high-level discussions about the conflict going on today.
That's right. As you said, the meetings are historic. It is the first time the EU is holding its foreign ministers a meeting outside of its borders. And as you said, there are many things up for discussion. One of the most important aspects, especially for Ukraine, of the meetings is Ukraine's process of joining the EU. And now, last year, the EU had given Ukraine status as candidate country, but this year they are expected to decide, this year in December, whether Kyiv can take the next step by opening negotiations. And this step requires the unanimous backing of all 27 member countries. Now, there's also been some practical things on the table up for discussion. For example, today, the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock stressed the need to protect Ukraine from the fallout of Russia targeting Ukraine's energy grid this coming winter months. She said that there needs to be a winter protection plan that includes air defense systems and generators and just an overall strengthening of Ukraine's energy supply. And of course, President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan is up for discussion as well. This peace formula has been discussed before, twice in the past year actually, but it has never before been discussed at this level in this kind of setting. So indeed, there's a lot that are being discussed by these 27 member EU countries. But for Ukraine, ultimately, they're hoping that the meetings will help them accelerate in their advance towards joining the EU in the future.
What's been the reaction to the election of a candidate in Slovakia seen as close to Russia?
Well, that's right. Slovakia had just elected a pro-Russian political party led by populist figure Robert Fico, and he has indeed vowed to cut military aid to Ukraine. And it appears that he may be joining another EU country, Hungary, in challenging continued military aid for Ukraine. Just last week, the Hungarian Prime Minister made some rather controversial comments saying that in terms of Ukraine joining the EU, there are a lot of difficult questions that first need to be answered. He said that because the country is still at war, it is unclear how big the territory of Ukraine is. So indeed, there are some cracks in terms of some European countries' support for Ukraine. But it is unfortunate that Slovakia has elected a pro-Russian political party. Slovakia has been one of the staunchest supporters of Ukraine in terms of military aid. It ranked top 5 European donors in terms of GDP, and it was one of the first to send its anti-aircraft missiles, the S-300, to Ukraine. So Kyiv indeed may be losing one of its staunchest allies, but I think today the focus for Kyiv is the fact that there are foreign ministers and representatives from all 27 EU member states here in Kyiv to discuss ongoing military aid for Ukraine. So there are some cracks indeed, but overall we are seeing overwhelming support from EU countries for Ukraine.
Megumi, thank you for that. Our correspondent Megumi Lim in Kyiv. Well, US President Joe Biden says he will not walk away from Ukraine after further military spending commitments were dropped from a key government bill. An emergency funding package passed over the weekend to prevent the shutdown of essential public services failed to include more aid for Kyiv. President Biden, who requested a further $24 billion in aid, has warned Republican lawmakers opposed to the funding that Ukrainians will die needlessly if backing from Washington runs out from November. Turkey says it carried out a series of airstrikes on Kurdish targets in Iraq. This follows a suicide bombing outside a government building in Ankara on Sunday. The government says the strikes hit 20 military bases controlled by the outlawed Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK. 2 police officers were injured in Sunday's attack on the Interior Ministry. One bomber blew himself up, while a second was shot dead by the police. At least 38 people have been injured after a police headquarters caught fire in the Egyptian city of Ismailia. The blaze has been extinguished, but parts of the building collapsed. The Interior Ministry is investigating the cause of the fire and warns the number of injuries might rise. Monday's incident happened just over a year after a deadly church fire in Giza killed 41 people. Donald Trump has arrived at a New York court for a civil fraud trial that raises questions about the future of his business empire. These are the latest live pictures. Last week, the judge issued a pre-trial ruling finding Trump and his co-defendants, including his 2 sons, guilty of using false financial statements to gain favorable loans. The New York Attorney General is seeking $250 million in fines and a ban on him doing business in the state. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, John Terrett, who is outside that courthouse in New York. John, extraordinary to watch these pictures. Yeah. So former President Trump arriving at the courthouse.
Yes, as with all things former President Trump, we didn't know until the last minute whether he would actually turn up here, but we knew that he was here because about 25 minutes ago there were helicopters overhead and a very large police presence as well. And as you've been seeing, he's been talking to members of the media, and his main message has been that this is a continuation of the greatest single witch hunt the world has ever known, and that it's election interference in his election campaign for the presidency in November of 2024. What we do know is that former President Trump woke up in Trump Tower this morning on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, uncertain whether he would even control that building when this court case comes to an end. The first witness today will be an outside accountant called Don Bender, who works for the company Mazars, based in New York and in Boston. And he's going to give the view of the Trump Organization books from the point of view of an outside accountant, somebody that doesn't actually work for the organization, but who advised it. We'll also have other opening statements as well. As you correctly said, people appearing in this case are likely to be President Trump. He's going into the courtroom now, but also Don Jr., his son, Eric, his son, Ivanka, his daughter, and other members of the family. Now, they may or they may not appear. They've been asked to appear. They may or they may not take the stand. We don't know. President Trump, I think, will take the stand later in this trial as it continues. At the heart of it, 6 issues. The company accused of falsifying business records, making verbal false statements, insurance fraud, conspiracy. In other words, inflating the wealth both of the former President Trump and his company, but crossing over the line into fraud. That is the basic accusation from the Attorney General of the state of New York. The defense coming from the Trump lawyers is going to be, well, look, you know, no one was hurt. We didn't default on any of our payments or any of our debts. All the insurance companies and all the banks got paid back, which is a fairly robust defense. And the thing about it is, I think if you look under the hood of many American corporations, particularly if you go back retroactively, you're going to find the same kind of things going on. However, this trial is now slated to last somewhere between 60 and 90 days. It will take us up either to the American holiday of Thanksgiving at the end of November or possibly closer to Christmas. But the trial, at this moment in New York, getting underway.
John, whatever the outcome of that trial, we should make it clear that part of these proceedings, part of this trial, has already been decided.
Yes, under the laws of the state of New York, the Attorney General, Letitia James, who Trump called on social media today a racist, appointed Arthur Engoron, who is the judge, to look at a very large chunk of the case. So think of it like this, very large case. He has already ruled on half of it, leaving 6 other areas that they need to explore with witnesses to be done here at the court. Now, Trump on social media said of Arthur Engoron, he's unfair, unhinged, and ambitious. But he said, look, when I looked at the Trump Organization books, I saw a fantasy world. You can believe me or you can believe your own eyes, said the judge. And among the accusations, Trump Tower inflated in size by 3 times, Mar-a-Lago being inflated 2,300 times. The judge has already cancelled the business charters of the Trump Organization and warned them to prepare that they must sell off large chunks of it. Now, President Trump, of course, is appealing this. He for now is here in court and the case is proceeding, and under the laws of the state of New York, the appeal has so far been denied. So there is a court-appointed officer standing by to begin winding up the Trump Organization, or part of the Trump Organization. Letitia James, the Attorney General, is seeking $250 million in fines. Remember, this is a civil case, it's not a criminal case. But President Trump, of course, built his reputation all the way to the White House based on being a real estate mogul, and a very rich one at that. So this case appears to be unwinding all of that, at least on paper and at least for now. So he is risking not only his money but also his reputation. And you say, what reputation is that? Well, his reputation of being a global real estate mogul, which got him all the way to the top job in America.
John,
Jamie?
Thank you for that. Our correspondent John Terrett outside the courthouse in New York. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, a first for Southeast Asia, as Indonesia's high-speed train network connecting its major cities opens for business. Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Solidarity and support. The message from European Union foreign ministers in Ukraine for an historic meeting. Our other headlines. Former United States President Donald Trump is in court in New York for a civil fraud case that raises questions about the future of his business empire. The first high-speed railway service in Southeast Asia has gone into operation, connecting the Indonesian capital Jakarta with its second city of Bandung. The $7 billion line, also known as WUSH, was funded by China as a Belt and Road project. CGTN's correspondent Xu Qinchen hopped on board.
Look at this. Over 140 kilometers long, this rail links Indonesia's capital Jakarta with the country's fourth largest city, Bandung. Traffic has been pretty busy between the two cities. Pre-pandemic data suggests some 40 million cars commuted between the two cities every year, and another 4 million commuters used the intercity trains. The commute used to take at least 3 hours, but it could sometimes be more than double that. With high-speed rail, commute time has been reduced to less than 45 minutes.
They're doing it very fast.
I mean, to topping the station.
Yeah.
Right? Fernando Shuhurlim is a young engineer from Jakarta who has been working on the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway for 3 years. We were able to get on board one of the test rides prior to the official opening of the rail service.
Hey, sorry, excuse us.
It's an honor for me, actually, because this is also my first job since I was graduated from university in 2019.
Shuhurlim joined the project in 2020. He was recruited by the Chinese company responsible for constructing and installing the telecommunication technologies for the new high-speed rail. For the friends or family members who know that you are working on this project, are they excited? Do they ask you about questions about this?
Of course, they're very curious about this project. They always ask me when will this high-speed railway open. They really want to try this train. Some of them also ask me for some help to put their names so I can get a ticket for them.
Oh, but can you do that?
No.
With a design speed of up to 350 kilometers per hour, the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail makes Indonesia the second country in the world to have the fastest commercial train operation after China.
The
Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway is the one with the highest technical standards among Chinese high-speed series. This railway also means that it makes Indonesia the second country in the world to have fast commercial trains operating at a speed of 350 kilometers per hour apart from China.
It took us about half an hour to reach the Kagalua station in Bandung.
Here we go. Ooh.
There are 4 stations along the rail: Halim in Jakarta, Kagalua in Bandung, Karawan, and Padalarang. Rail transport has the advantages of large capacity for both passenger and cargo transportation, providing a great solution to rising logistics costs in Indonesia. Xu Xinchen, CGTN, Jakarta, Indonesia.
3 of Spain's women's football players, including the 2-time Ballon d'Or winner Alexia Putellas, have appeared in court. They're witnesses in the investigation into the World Cup kiss by the former Football Federation president, Luis Rubiales. Player Jenny Hermoso made a criminal complaint of sexual assault after Rubiales kissed her on the mouth during the medal ceremony. He denies any wrongdoing and says the kiss was consensual. Well, let's talk to our correspondent Ken Brown, watching events for us in Madrid. Ken, so what's going on? What more do we know?
Yes, as you mentioned, Jamie, 3 high-profile players giving their statements today. We heard from Alexia Putellas, we heard from Irene Paredes, and from Misa Rodriguez. Now, Rodriguez is the Real Madrid goalkeeper, so she was present in the courtroom in Madrid today. The other 2 play for Barcelona, so they gave their statements from a courtroom in Barcelona. They talked about the hours leading up to this now infamous kiss. Putellas, of course, was next on the podium to receive her medal after Hermoso, and Rodriguez and Putellas both went to Ibiza to celebrate this amazing achievement. Let's not forget that this was the first time that Spain's women ever won the Women's World Cup. And, of course, it isn't just about the kiss now. There's also charges of coercion against a number of members of the federation who we heard today. The players gave their testimony about how various members of the federation came to try and pressure Hermoso into backing up into confirming Rubiales' statements and how his version of events. And today was just one in a long line of hearing days that we're going to have. There are a number of RFEF officials that still have to come and give testimony. This is not going to be quick. Jenny Hermoso, for example, she plays her football in Mexico. She plays for Pachuca. The league ends on the 4th of November there. But if her team gets into the playoffs or the tournament to see who wins the league, then she could be there until the 27th of November. So a long time to come in this case yet, and not really a clear idea of when this will be resolved moving forward. Right now, testimony and witness statements being heard.
And Rubiales has already given his evidence, insisting, of course, as we say, on his innocence. What is likely to happen next, and how long before we can expect a verdict?
Yes, Rubiales insisting on his innocence. He has stated his case already on the 12th of September. He answered questions for around 45 minutes in front of the judge and a panel of prosecutors. He once again reiterated his position, his statement that he is innocent, that the kiss was consensual. He also presented some video evidence with a professional lip reader that he says clears his name, that he says confirms that the kiss was consensual on the podium. Now, from here, as I mentioned, it's going to be a long hearing process. We won't have any real idea when the verdict is going to come, due partly because Jenny Hermoso, the main witness here, the main victim in this case, she cannot be here. One of the conditions that the judge has put is that Hermoso must give her testimony in person. So they're waiting to see what happens, if she is free after the 4th of November, if it will be more towards December when she gives her testimony, Jamie. So a while yet to come in this case, but it's still capturing international headlines.
Ken, thank you for that. Our correspondent Ken Brown in Madrid. The roof of a church collapsed during a mass on Sunday in Mexico, killing at least 9 people and injuring around 50. Approximately 30 parishioners were believed to have been trapped in the rubble. The emergency team searched the rubble late into the night looking for survivors. Police said about 100 people were in the church at the time of the collapse. Junior doctors and consultants are staging a 3-day walkout in England. National Health Service managers are warning patients to expect disruption in hospitals. The strike will bring non-emergency care to a near standstill. The British Medical Association is promising that emergency care will be staffed. It's more than 100 days since the Health Secretary sat down with doctors' union leaders for a pay talk, but none are planned. At least 58 migrants have been rescued after being stranded overnight off Spain's Canary Islands. They were taken to a port in Gran Canaria and cared for by Red Cross workers. A day earlier, more than 100 people were picked up by the Coast Guard in the same area. The Atlantic migration route is one of the deadliest in the world and typically used by migrants from sub-Saharan Africa attempting to reach Europe. China's equestrian squad has made history by winning their first ever gold in the eventing team final. Alex Hua Tian won the individual title with his horse Poseidon's Admiral. China's eventing foursome earned top honours in the team final with 86.80 points. Japan were placed second and Thailand third. Our correspondent Chen Yulan talked to him after the competition.
First, a big congratulations to you, Alex.
Thank you.
So how would you describe you and Stig's performance for today?
I'm just so relieved, to be honest. Stig is such a fantastic jumper. I think we saw that today. And he breezed around the cross-country yesterday very quickly, a little bit too quickly. And I thought he would feel very bright and easy today, but actually he was a little bit tired, so I didn't do too much warm-up. But he was tremendous in the arena. I tried my hardest, and today it was good enough, so I'm very pleased with that.
This is actually the second time you've competed in China. So from 2008 Beijing Olympics to Hangzhou Asian Games, could you describe the journey in between?
So amazing. So as a Chinese athlete, I've been competing for quite a few years now. You know, standing next to the Chinese show jumping team and Rao Jiayi and the dressage team, I feel quite old now. But for me, I made a decision many years ago that I had the opportunity to represent China on the international scene. And it's very difficult as an athlete to compete internationally, but also here on the domestic circuit with horses. To have this rare opportunity to be here at our home championships, at an Asian Games, and for the stars to align and to win not only team gold but individual is very special.
And during this year's Asian Games, we've also witnessed the emergence of more young Chinese equestrian athletes. So what do you want to say to the younger generation?
It's so exciting. We have, in the dressage team, we had 2 older generation riders, and then we have a young upcoming superstar, Sarah Rao Jiayi, who's actually based in our stables in the UK. Together they won the team silver medal, which was absolutely brilliant. I'm so proud of them. The eventing team, okay, at the moment we are all the same generation, all in our 30s. But you look at the show jumping team and they're all under 25, they're young, they're dynamic, they very much represent the next generation of riders coming through. And I think for Chinese equestrian sports, this championship is, I feel, going to prove a key milestone to demonstrating that China and that generation is the bright future for Chinese equestrianism.
And you can find much more of Alex Hua Tian's story on our website, europe.cgtn.com. Chinese government is hoping to see 900 million tourist trips and generate $100 billion in holiday spending during what's called Golden Week. Our correspondent Dai Kai reports now from Beijing.
I'm right now at a business district here in the Chinese capital, Beijing. This year we got an 8-day holiday, which is longer than usual. So this is not something that we get every year. And that momentum of going out, traveling and buying certainly continues after a vibrant Labor Day holiday earlier this May, and also the summer season that has just passed. So many experts actually predict that we might be seeing a record high in terms of consumption volume in this National Day holiday in the recent 5 years. So instead of just going out for a short distance vacation in nearby provinces or cities, people actually choose to go farther and experience deeper as well as stay longer. That's one of the major trends experts spotted for this year's National Day holiday. According to the data of the travel booking platform Ctrip, actually the tourism-related orders surged to almost 3 times compared to the same time last year, and is around 20% more compared to the Labor Day holiday earlier this May. So another trend that they spotted is many of the overseas destinations are very popular. For example, 2 of China's special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau, and southeastern countries such as Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand.
Our correspondent Dai Kai reporting from Beijing. And that is The World Today. Thank you for watching. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Inside. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.